Well, welcome again to Moose Jaw this week. We're in the Mayor's office at Moose Jaw City Hall with His Worship Glenn Hagel, one of our, not the last, but maybe close to the last interviews. So we thought we'd give him a chance to reflect on his term in office and some of the perspectives on the upcoming elections, particularly the referendum, because that's something that you have you want to make sure people understand what it's about. So, but let's start off about reflection. So we've had a great time laughing for the last 15 minutes before we started this thing.
That's right.
Just reflecting on some of the things that have happened and world, and things that happen in our world. But you've had a really good run.
Yes.
As a civic politician, as a provincial politician, and now as a family politician.
Yeah. That could be the trickiest of all, is being a family politician.
But when you left the government, you'd had a very successful career with them and very respected in the province. And to run for mayor, people kind of go, why would you do that? Now, in retrospect, why did you do that?
You know, it had a lot to do with the mood of the city at the time. I think as we reflect back 3 years ago, there was a lot of tension in the city related to the decisions around the building of what is now Mosaic Place in the Fieldhouse. And I will never forget the tipping point, because I had some approaches, and when I left provincial politics, I really did not have in my mind that I was intending to go municipal, but I had a conversation with a local minister after a funeral that I attended in the spring of the election year, and he called me aside and asked if I had given any thought to running for mayor, and I said, well, I've had people ask me about it, and I told them I think about it, but I haven't made up my mind by a long shot. And I'll never forget his comment, because it really hit home. He said, Glenn, we've become a city divided and we're beating ourselves up, and we need somebody to help us heal. And I think you're that person. Wow, how do you say no to that? And so I went home, and we had some discussion at home, and thought that maybe I would be able to use my experience and to help the city of Moose Jaw restore its belief in its future and its pride in our city. And so in that context, in many ways, that was my primary reason, was to try and be a facilitator for the city to feel good about itself and to position itself for the future and start thinking about the future and moving on.
Okay.
And
now you decided not to be here. Yeah. And because you've got grandchildren. Yeah. And you've got aging relatives that need to have extended visits.
Well, I've got 5 younger brothers and sisters, 4 of whom already retired. Yeah. And my wife Karen is retired, and 2 little grandchildren who didn't exist in this world when I came to the mayor's office. And when we sat down together, we came to a common conclusion. Over the last 30 plus years, we've had 9 family discussions about whether or not to participate in an election. The first 8 ended with a yes, and the 9th one came to a unanimous conclusion that now was the time to spend more time together. Yeah. And for me, by far, that's the biggest factor in deciding it's time to move on and to let someone else be part of directing the future of the city and pay more attention to the ones we love the most.
Yeah, and Marco, who probably is part of the love the most.
Absolutely. And my dog Marco says he thinks he's going, yahoo, we're going to get to almost all the agility classes instead of a small fraction.
He's very excited. Yeah.
He is.
And that's good. But you've done a lot of things. The demeanor and the attitude, I think the atmosphere, as you said, what you tried to go, there's less hostility. There's still some.
People have a right to their own opinion. Yeah. But I think the mood
wrong
of the city,
as they may be.
That's right. We won't get into that. But I think there's a nice mood in the city these days. Moose Jaw, I think, is feeling pretty good about the future. The face of the city is changing. The census tells us that we're getting younger.
And we
actually
promoted the heck out of that to get more people out to do their forms,
absolutely.
and it worked.
Fill out your form.
How many people did we gain?
1,350.
Okay,
yeah.
So it was worth the effort.
Yeah, and that means that when we get our share of grants from provincial and federal governments, that we get our fair share. And what also it told us is that actually the growth that we've experienced was largely if you summarize, but I won't go through all the detail, but if you summarized it, it was largely working age people in their 20s and 30s. That's where that captured the whole growth of that the city was experiencing. And I think, I mean, that's information that's actually now a year old already.
I know.
And I think the trend is still continuing.
It's still climbing, yeah.
And as we look into the future, the face of Moose Jaw is actually getting younger. Yeah.
Yeah, and whoever replaces you will in fact be younger.
That's right. The face of the mayor.
The face of the mayor will be younger.
It will be younger. Okay. Some would say a whole lot younger.
But yeah, and so and talking about the election, of course, a lot of interest in the community, like 19 candidates as we speak. And of course, this is when we're taping. This is the day when people can withdraw if they want to. And about 19 candidates for that. There's like. For school board, there's like, what, is it 13 or 12 for the 5 positions in Moose Jaw, and 2 for mayor, and then the referendum, and that's what we would do. Right. And I know you wanted to talk about that because you think it's a very important issue that people should think about. Now, I had a discussion this morning before I came here with someone who was very much. Thought the idea was bad, and they pointed out one thing to him, and he was saying his concept was the ward system is where you have neighborhoods, and they elect one person to represent themselves in council. He said, but if we did that with the ward system, we wouldn't, in the current council, have had both Councillor Eby and Councillor Tomei, because they both live on South Hill, and there would only be one seat there, and therefore there would be then there would only be one person from that area. And he says, he says, where I live, we don't have, nobody represents us. And I go, that's the point.
Yes.
Everybody should have someone in their area, or that's the purpose.
It is. It's geographically spread out. A ward system would probably mean that you would always have a couple of councillors from South Hill on council. And as I look back over the years and the decades in Moose Jaw, I think South Hill and probably east side of Moose Jaw have been grossly underrepresented at the council table. The ward system assures that there will be geographical representation from around the city, but it also ensures that because we now have adopted strategic planning, that the loyalty to the people who elected you in your ward doesn't get in the way of looking at the big picture and the future of Moose Jaw. So that long-term planning is very important.
We had a discussion at one of the recent Warrior Games, and we talked about the fact that the ward system is used in Saskatoon and Regina, and they're big cities. And, Prince Albert had the ward system for a while.
They did,
and then it was, for whatever reason, the provincial government legislated it away.
Yes, they lost their option.
They have the option of having that kind of thing. But now it's back. Now, people should understand that if you're over 50,000, you have to
use the ward system.
If you're between what, 25?
25 and 50, you have a choice.
You have a choice.
If you're under 25, it's at large. So at this point in our history, there's really only 2 cities that fall into the category of having the choice. That's Prince Albert and Moose Jaw. Prince Albert had it for a long time, lost the right to have it, so they went to the at-large system. But as soon as they, in the 90s, when they had the right to have a choice, they went back to the ward system. They found that that was the system that they liked best. And actually, when I came to the mayor's office, I was of the view that the at-large system served us best. And it was because my concern was the wards would make us territorial at the council table. But as I looked at Prince Albert's experience, spoke with their mayor about their experience, I came to conclude, actually, the reality is the exact opposite. Having the ward system makes people more collaborative. Because you want to not only do what's good for the city, but ensure that your part of the city is getting the best possible services. And the way that you do that is form partnerships. The reality is, in politics, if you want to get things done, you need to form partnerships, whether it's city with province or city with country, but also at the council table, councillors to councillors. And so having the ward system forces councillors to become collaborative. Because if I want to have your support to improve circumstances in my area, my ward, then the best way to do that is to find out what's important to you and support yours. And then by us working together, we can each ensure that we're faithful to the aspirations of the people all over the city. So that to me was the tipping point for me, is thinking that through and finding out, the ward system, in fact, I think increases collaboration. You can't be somebody who says, I'm not going to have anything to do with anybody else's parts of the city. I only care about mine and mine alone. They're going to find, then I think you're probably not going to get a whole lot done for your part, for your part of the city.
Yeah. So it's an example of any political process where
that's right.
It's just a smaller version of it. Like in province, you try to get together with people.
Yeah, that's right. And in the country the same. And certainly that was my experience throughout my political career, is that I've always believed, and that the best way to get things done when I was provincial, best way to get things done for Moose Jaw was to understand how other members of the government, what was important to them, and to understand that, and what I felt I could comfortably support, but to be very open-minded about that. And I understood then too that when decisions came that had impacts on Moose Jaw, that's the way I could make my arguments for Moose Jaw the strongest, was to build allegiances and bridges with other members. And the same principles hold true in council. Actually, they hold true in your household. They hold true in your neighborhood, on your block. Good old-fashioned cooperation, I think, is, at the end of the day, by far the best way to get things accomplished.
And you think the ward system will be effective? Like, currently on our council, there are a couple of people who live within a block or two of each other, and by doing that, perhaps they wouldn't be there. Or one of them would be there.
In the ward system, you don't have to live in the ward.
Oh, they don't?
No, you don't have to live in the ward, but it's very rare that you don't, that somebody's elected who doesn't, unless they live really, really close to the ward. But the advantage there, like, we've got 19 on the list. 19, it's tough enough for mayoralty candidates to get around and see everybody during the election. When I ran for mayor, goodness, I didn't get to half the households in the city. Councillors running at large have got the same challenge, but with a fraction of the resources and a much smaller support team working with them. When you have a ward system, not only is it possible, people have a right to expect your candidate's going to come to your house, because now they can. They can get around, and you can get to know them. I suspect for the large majority of people, they look at the list of 19, probably half of them they never heard of before, and they have no idea what they stand for or how they'd approach it, and really, really difficult for them to learn much in the 5 or 6 week period of the actual election itself. The ward system means it's possible, and you have a right to expect your candidate to come around and get to your place, so you get to know them and find out what they stand for, and ask them the questions that you want to ask them. So I think the ward system gets you better engaged with city council, and I think that's a good thing. And it also means that you have somebody that you know a little better, that you can go to if you've got a concern. But even if you don't, there's no obligation to have to go only to your councillor. Some councillors will have backgrounds that make them, because they've been involved in that kind of stuff, you'd rather talk to them about your concern. But having said all of that, the good old mayor, the mayor's office is always there, and the mayor is available to everyone, as it always has been and always will be, no matter which kind of system you're using.
And that's a pretty good summary of it. Now we're in our last couple of minutes, I heard done. So, as I said, this may or may not be the last time. We'll see. But certainly, you've had an experience. Where do you see the city going? What are the things that we're going to go towards?
Oh, we're going to continue to grow in the decades I've lived in Moose Jaw, the most common statement I've heard is, "Great place to raise a family, but," and the but is, but we wish our kids could grow up, get their educations, and make their futures here." And I think Moose Jaw has started down the path of responding to that but. That we have here SciAst, which annually produces 1,000 grads. It's the home of the engineering technologies, the building trades, and the business division. Potash is growing in its importance to us, the industrial corridor. You look at those trades, you look at the things that are our natural advantages, and I see some of those high quality jobs that people can build futures around more and more becoming the part of the future of Moose Jaw. And as I look ahead, I see the average age in Moose Jaw reducing. In the last census, same number of seniors, but as a percentage it went down because our young people have grown in numbers. And it's also, that's why I support the ward system too, because it makes it possible for young, bright, hard-working people to get themselves known in order to be part of their city council. So that's where I think we're heading. That's the big picture, and the one that I hope the next council will decide. We've started down a good path that the city feels good about, and that sense of pride and optimism about the future is something that continues not just for years, but for decades to come.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out of the computer world and, and the meeting world. But that still continues until October and
November 13th.
November 13th, yes,
is when the transition takes place.
The 13th.
Yeah.
But don't forget to that Shaw will be covering the Candidates Forum, which will be held at Peacock Collegiate. Absolutely. And that's a chance for people to get out there and see who they are, or to watch on Shaw and learn what people stand for, and I think that's important. When a knowledgeable electorate gives you a good government.
It does, and I want to say thanks to Shaw for doing that, because I've long believed the greatest enemies of democracy are ignorance and apathy. The greatest friends of democracy are knowledge and participation. And by doing the filming of those forums and enabling citizens who can't be there to learn for themselves, Shaw is playing a very, very positive role in the practice of democracy in our city. So thank you.